Welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be talking about multifamily design development, and I am joined by two of the best in the industry. I've got Andrew Cigna from Above All Realty, and I have Mehdi Motevalibashi from Bashi Homes. Guys, introduce yourself.
My name is Andrew Cigna. I'm with Above All Realty. I also own an investment group that does multifamilies. We started doing conversions, so we're going to talk about that today, from my understanding. And Mehdi has the construction background to kind of really execute on those projects. So I'm going to let that segue right into Mehdi.
Thanks, Dwayne, for having us. I'm Mehdi from Bashi Homes. I'm a general contractor here based out of Lancaster. I do multifamily conversions and infill development, and I am an investor as well here in Hamilton area. And like you said, I'm very excited to talk about the new bylaws and the new neighborhood guidelines for Hamilton.
That's awesome. I'm more excited to hear your stories, man. Seriously. So let's jump into those. So look, we've got two pictures on the screen here. I'm trying to figure out what's this all about. Talk to us, Mehdi. What are we seeing on the screen here?
Sure. So I'll start from the one on the right, or you see, not sure what's the direction of the one on the middle. That's this small bungalow that I purchased a few years ago on the mountain. And this is a small bungalow in a huge lot. And at the time, we didn't have the new bylaws that were just introduced. So I could do a duplex conversion. I put a side entrance for the new side entrance for the basement, convert it into a duplex, one unit on the main floor, one unit in the basement. And that was at the time, like that was before the hikes and the rates, and that cash flowed. So that deal worked. That's why I bought it, and I bought this off market. It was a good deal for me. And then after rates went up, I'm now breaking even. So the importance of the new bylaws is that now I can build like two more units, probably add one on the top or put an addition, and then put an ADU in the backyard, which is an additional dwelling unit, a detached structure, just like this home. And this is a huge lot, so it allows me to meet all the guidelines. And probably you and Andrew should talk about the cash flow, how the deal works. You guys were expert on that, but like with a duplex conversion, with the new prices, new interest rates, it's very hard to make a duplex cash flow in the nicer neighborhood or like more expensive neighborhood of like this one on Hamilton Mountain, for example, or maybe in the whole Hamilton. But with another unit like triplex or fourplex is easier. So, but the new guidelines the new bylaws have some guidelines for like so I know we're gonna talk about it later today, but like for setbacks, and it goes all the way into detail of like the picture you see on the left. It was an infill development, but I put it here as an example that the city wants to see a nice design for these multifamilies, like projection, recessions in the facade, and a flow in the neighborhood. So they want to see the house to match the houses, not necessarily similar to the houses around that, but match the neighborhood.
100%. And I think from a lender standpoint, when we're looking at 4 units, we're still on the residential for the mortgage side. We're not actually over to commercial until we get above 5. But income makes a huge factor. If I was trying to underwrite this deal, and let's say I'm working with somebody who's doesn't have a large income, and also has another rental property, and then plus their own home, and they're trying to cover the cost on this one here, it may not make sense because I can only use typically 50% of the rent to add back to income, right? Or with some lenders, I can use an offset. But you're right, 100%. Like if you now have that same property tax, right, on that one property, but now you've got 4 units, and if it's vacant and we can use with our market rents appraisals, we're using great rents at this point, right? So this thing's going to look delicious for lenders, right?
So does that mean that if this is a duplex, so bank will consider 50%, let's say, for argument's sake, 50% of two rents? For example, a house like this on average will make like $4,000. If I build, and it's a question for you, if I build a fourplex, they will consider half of the rent of 4 units.
100%. Yep, 100%.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Andrew, any insights on what you see in the market, and what do you think about these type of investments?
I think this is a fantastic move for the city of Hamilton. The density move is a big one, right? So what we're actually doing on our investment side is that we don't entertain anything that can't have a phase 3 or a phase 4. And what that means is that the lot itself needs to meet a certain requirement. Now, Mehdi, I know you could probably elaborate a little bit more than I can, is that I believe that there's a certain square footage that you can have occupied, the house occupy the square footage of the lot, right? So if it doesn't meet a certain criteria of the land, we don't entertain it. Because right now, straight duplex conversions don't make sense. And it will take a little bit. Now, I know that duplexes have gone down in price. So at the peak of the market during the COVID craze, it was 1.1 for a typical duplex. Now it's about 750, 800. So there is a significant drop. But that also gives an opportunity for single family houses that have good lots. So you can do a duplex first, do the conversion, pull your money out, even if it's break even, and then 2 or 3 years down the road, put an ADU in, and then 2 or 3 years down the road from there, add an additional unit. So you don't have to do it all up front and just have it in phases. And that's what we're entertaining. So depending on how the budget is, and depending on where you are in your investment journey, your acquisition will be different. But don't just keep it to a single family conversion, because you may be limited down the road. And that, for me, the whole journey needs to be evaluated, not just today.
That's awesome. That's good insights. We okay to move on, guys? Or any more thoughts?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So let's just move on. We'll be talking more about project management and that sort of thing in a bit, and risk mitigation, all that kind of stuff. But I do want to talk about what is actually happening in Hamilton for those people that don't know. So the marketing side of things, like the branding side of things, if you Google reimagining neighborhoods, Hamilton, you'll find that Hamilton's done a pretty good job explaining what they're trying to do, and that's changing bylaws. And bylaws is a legal thing, and if anybody's ever read any legal contract, it's not fun. So they've done a pretty good job explaining what they're going to do here. And what the Reimagine Neighborhoods is doing is, we had basically 6 municipalities in Hamilton, all with 6 different bylaws. And let's face it, Mehdi, you can speak to this. What was it like trying to get permits and stuff, 3 or 4 years ago?
Oh, very frustrating.
I've heard horror stories. Now I'm hearing great stories. Not since the cyber attack, but but I'm sure it'll get better soon. But what Reimagining Neighborhoods is doing is they're changing it from 6 individual bylaws to one set of bylaws for low density and mid density housing. And so now, if you look at the map, you've got almost 78% of all of Hamilton's low density housing units have the ability to now put up to a minimum of a triplex. And now Hamilton's actually approved in most of these that you can actually put a fourplex on them. And that's a lot of opportunity. I'll tell you, I live on the mountain in Hamilton, and just on my street, they've done 2 duplex conversions. But it's not the duplex what we need. We need a triplex. We need a fourplex, because right now we don't have enough units for people. So it's good that Hamilton's doing that. That's all I'm going to talk about that. If anybody wants to add anything else, you can. But I thought we would jump right into the neighborhood infill guides. But Andrew, did you want to add something?
Yeah, no, I think that municipalities are really starting to make a strong push before the Building Faster Fund. I think that they're really trying to hit their targets, because the provincial government is giving some good grants or rewards from that fund. So you're going to see municipalities that were really hesitant before start to release up, because usually people's intentions change when they're starting to get money.
100%. And it is. That's the province's stick to make the municipalities get in line, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And stop the bureaucratic and slow moving process of,
Absolutely.
having people be able to do things that we need to do. And if someone wants to invest in Hamilton, the easiest way to stop them from doing it is to make it a pain in the ass.
Exactly.
Yeah, pardon my French. Anyway, so let's jump into the neighborhood infill design guides. I looked at this, Mehdi. I'm trying to read it as a common person. What's this guideline as a general contractor? What does this do for you?
Yeah, so this goes more into detail of what would be possible in terms of like developing or renovating a house and turn it into a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. And at some points, they say in some neighborhood you can go to like apply for zoning bylaw or go to committee of adjustment and put fiveplex or sixplexes. But this document specifically is talking about like more like triplex and fourplexes, and how the neighborhoods is going to change because of that. So there are like multiple ways you can add. One is ADUs, very hot topic these days, like additional dwelling unit, a detached or attached structure that you can put in the lot. So ADUs, you can see on the left, there are two examples of ADUs that are detached. You can convert your garage, detached or attached garage, into an additional dwelling unit. And it also talks about how you can convert the existing structure into multiple units. So the like most common way that we've been doing during the past years was like turning like basement upstairs into like two units, separating them, following the code, and like by fire rating or providing the exclusive access to each unit, we turn into duplex. But it also now you can see if I think you have the pictures on the next slides.
Sure.
It shows more units. Now you can see here that you can put start from top left, like one unit on the second floor and dwelling unit on the main floor, another dwelling unit in the basement, or you can add an addition, like an ADU, let's say another structure in the backyard, and turn into a fourplex, or turn, if the square footage allows, you can divide the main floor to two units and have a unit in the basement, have a unit in upstairs. So that's a fourplex. So these are very interesting in terms of like, again, at the time of I was doing like a few years ago, these were not possible, and it was so limited what you can do with a house on a bit of a huge lot. A lot of these houses are like small bungalow on a huge lot.
Well, that's my place. I have a raised ranch, and I think my
those are
lot
like,
size is like 110 by 60 or something like that.
wow.
My pool, I think my pool is 38 by 20. Like, who needs a pool that big?
So some people, some of my friends, they ask me an ADU, and they think about like a small, like a cottage shaped thing in the backyard. It can be a structure. It can be a full house as big as the main structure. It
Really?
can't be bigger than the main structure, but it can be another house in the backyard. So it's not a temporary like container type of thing, which those are also available for like smaller lots and laneway housing. But like this is a full structure, full house in your backyard.
So I got a couple questions for you both, and I'll just post first of all the first question, and then you both can answer it. So I'll start with the first one. So how have the recent infill design changes to ADUs affected the strategy for real estate investors? Throw that one to Andrew.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, it's like now you're evaluating on multiple phases of single families, right? Like before I was going in and evaluating more of the house. Now it's more evaluating the lot, right? Because now you could do it in multiple phases. Okay, let's say you don't have that much capital and you want to start investing. Okay, you do the duplex first. 2 years when that start, you pull that equity out, put it into an ADU, right? Just let the appreciation happen naturally. So you're evaluating it in phases instead of going in there and being limited just to the house. You're now opening your horizon to multiple phases.
Awesome.
That's awesome, Andrew. That's the exact same. So, 2 years ago, I bought 2 houses on the mountain as my personal investment. Both of them has huge lots, like 150 feet deep lot, and as like I didn't have enough capital to put ADUs at the back or do anything. But we fenced out the backyard, half of the backyard. Tenants still can use the backyard, but half of it. But because like this is the tenant law. If you let the tenant use the whole backyard, they are entitled to the whole thing. So I fenced it out. So and then the plan is, whenever from now I can refinance, pull the money back, out, I can go and do that. It's a great strategy that you said. It's awesome.
I knew there's a reason I had you guys both on this one. All right, here's the next one. So are there any new opportunities or challenges that investors should be aware of?
So again, we're going to circle back to the ADUs are a big thing, right? So it's not new, but it's something that should be evaluated because ADUs are now becoming more prominent. Now, there was an investor that I saw on social saying ADUs are a waste of money, and I couldn't disagree more. I think that why go buy, he's suggesting go buy another property with the amount that you're going to pay to an ADU or a guest suite. And my opinion is why go through that whole acquisition process, depending on what your budget is, buy another property when you could save the land transfer tax and execute on the ADU. Because they're not evaluated by banks very much right now, because it's not common, from my understanding, it will eventually. And when it does, they're going to evaluate it as a brand new structure. Because when you go rent out a brand new structure, you're able to push the limits on the rental per square foot. That's my opinion, right? So, like, it's not a new style. It's just, again, leading back to start evaluating the lot of the land compared to just the house. Because when I was getting into duplex conversion, everything was about the house. How can I do this? What was the fastest execution point? What's going to be how am I going to execute on the operations of it? Now it's like, okay, how am I going to execute on the operations of phase 3 and 4?
It's awesome.
Right? So because also permitting process was a real pain in the ass. I think it's going to start to ease up a little bit for getting permits, because Hamilton's notorious for being terrible to issue a permit. Like, everybody complains about it. I think that now with the Building Faster Fund, we're going to start seeing permits fly out because they want those units.
Yeah, it's the old carrot and the stick, man.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not a new, but I think it's going to be a popular method of now, okay, let's look at lots.
Okay, I got a question for you, Mehdi. So I'm thinking about this, and remember, I know nothing about construction. Both of you two know a lot, but I'm thinking about this. So my mother-in-law, we're out for dinner last week, and she's like, hey, I was telling her about the ADU. She's like, can you build an ADU in your backyard for me? I'm like, hey, you can live in my house. You don't have to live in a garage, right? But then Mehdi said some stuff to me in our last video that made me want to think about this. So there's two questions, Mehdi. First one is, okay, do I got to pipe everything in, or do they have to have their own separate piping out there? I mean, you know what I'm talking about: water, hydro, gas. Or do you tie into the main line? Like, if I was going to put an ADU, what do I do?
Yeah, so one of the good thing about ADUs is that you don't need to service. That's not a separate lot that you need to pay hefty expenses to service that lot. Your lot is already serviced. So you can tie it into existing one. Now comes the question of how you tie it in. It's not an easy thing to go underground and tie it into the sewer line. It really depends on the property, how, where are the services coming in, and if the furnace room, for example, is on on a side that you can like dig in and like find all the services. That's the perfect scenario that you can find the gas, electricity, everything there. But I would say like probably the easiest is to attach the hydro to the existing line. And for that, the electrician, they will just, it's easy. They put an application, pull a permit to put another meter, hydrometer for the dwelling unit. The most challenging one would be the sewer water line, because not only do you have to dig in and go in like for one of them 4 feet down, one of them 2 feet down, but they have to have like from with a certain distance. You can't put just like water sewer together in a trench, and then the gas line. It is possible, and it's absolutely much easier than servicing a vacant lot.
Yeah, like you know what, I couldn't agree more. But sometimes, like Mehdi said, it depends on the property. So the one that I have, we're actually going to go direct from main to the ADU instead of branching off from the house, because where the furnace room is, I'd have to break up the entire floor of the house to get to it. And it's like, you know what? One, I want to put in separate hydrometers and a separate water meter. So tie into the main, and we'll dig out the driveway.
Here you go.
It's actually going to be cheaper, because then I got to ruin a finished unit because my roof is done. It's like, no, we'll do one new hydrometer, new water meter, and we'll just go right from the main to the ADU.
That's awesome. So that you're right. So for the ones the two properties with a huge backyard that I had, and I was thinking about putting an ADU in the future. I haven't put yet. But because I was going through the whole full gut renovation, it was easy for me to tie everything in. So I tied it in, put the trench in, put the pipes, had the engineer report on that, engineer sign off on those. And then again, I'm not saying it's possible for all the lots. Also, the engineering sign off, there are some changes on city side as well. It's in some points it's not possible anymore to have an engineer sign off on something before the specific permit is issued. I'm dealing with it now in a few projects, but having the provision of like, okay, I'm buying this property, how am I gonna service the ADU in the future? You gotta have it in mind, especially that we are talking about like design development. It's very critical at this stage.
Great answers. So let's move on, because Mehdi, you know I want to talk about this picture right here. So what are you doing?
Yeah. In few cases, it does make sense to demo the whole house and build new. Like most of the cases, I would say that I was involved in, it just made sense to do a renovation, even if we had to like just keep one wall on one side and like build the whole thing around it. As long as it was considered renovation, it like will avoid a lot of fees in the city, like development fees and servicing the lot, upgrading all the services and everything. But in some cases, when there's opportunity to make like to have like, for example, two adjacent lots, and we tore down the building and then got a permit for sixplex. So it definitely makes sense. Instead of converting the house into a duplex and there was no other room to put an ADU at the back, it was a small lot with two adjacent lots. We got a permit for purpose-built sixplex.
Mehdi, do you mind just kind of touching on that point that you mentioned on why you would leave up one wall because of the development fees and how that is scaled? Because I know that there's a percentage that you have to keep up before that transitions to development fees. Just chime in a little bit on that, because it is an interesting point that I think people would want to know about.
Absolutely, and it is different from like I think Toronto and Hamilton, slightly different. But if you demo the whole thing and build new, that's considered new development. And as you said, like there's a percentage. If you demo all the walls and like let's say you keep only the foundation walls, it is most considered like new development. So new development, not only there are fees, you are going to a different department in the city. So if your architect or designer specialize in renovation duplex conversion, and you go to different like development part, infill part, that's totally a different beast. But some cases it makes sense that we keep a certain percentage, as you said, Andrew, like two walls on the house. You can demo the whole rest of the house and build around it. So you preserve that and build around it. So it's considered renovation, and then it's much faster, much easier. The permits will be much faster. You don't need to go to other committee of adjustment. You don't need to do the setbacks. And yeah.
And at the end of the day, let's be honest, if you're able to speed up that process and not go through the development process, you're saving money, because every day you don't get done a project, you're losing money. So if you're able to expedite a project faster, we highly recommend it, because the way we break it down is every day costs us X. Every day it takes longer, we lose X dollars. And that's money that comes out of your pocket. And at the end of the day, you want that money. So if you could save the two walls and expedite the project, that's definitely a strategy that people should consider. The one thing that I'm I touched on this last night, is like what scratches my head is that they're doing all this changes to the density, but they restricted the urban bound here in Hamilton, which is like, okay, so now we're clearly going up, so you got to start producing way faster. Like that means just guys from Toronto are just going to start flocking here that do towers, right? Then the subdivision guys are not coming here; they're going somewhere else.
Well, that's phase 2. Like right now, you have R1, R1A for low density. So you can do on an R1, you can do up to a 4-plex, right? Hamilton did a great job there. Everyone else was like, okay, we're maxing out at a triplex. Hamilton said, yeah, I'll do you one better. Let's go 4 and an ADU. Good job, Hamilton. Now they're coming out with the next phase is going to create R2s. And now, like on a street like mine across here, there's an old church on the corner. Oh, I better not be talking about this, because that's probably going to go up for sale soon. And that is a huge investment opportunity if anybody buys it. Because you can put on that section, soon they're going to approve, you can put up to an 8 to a 12-story apartment building on those thoroughfares, because that's a main road, main artery. Like, so it's not done yet. It's not approved yet. They're going to be approving it. But those are things that you're talking about there, Andrew, that Hamilton's going to change. The way our neighborhoods look are going to change. And I don't think that's for the worse. All right. So, Mehdi, talk to us about your infill design. We'll be talking about parking lots and, where do I put people when they, we're building these duplexes and triplexes. So talk to us about what you're seeing here.
Yeah, sure. So this specific one was a duplex conversion with provisions for adding 2 more units. The back, this is like we widened the driveway so that there's access to the backyard. The city and the new guidelines they're talking about, they want to see if it's a 4-plex in a lot, they want to see more parkings in the backyard if there's enough space side of the building, side of the existing structure that allows cars to go back there. So we're just proactive here and widened the driveway for concrete to give access to the backyard. So in the future, when we put an ADU in the back, there is at least 3 parkings. We can provide 3 parkings in the back.
Cool. So I got a question for both of you. So when it comes to project management, what are your top recommendations for managing a conversion project effectively? Especially for investors who might be new to dealing with duplex or triplex conversions.
So effective project management. Obviously, you want to plan for everything in ahead of time, even before. For my projects, even before you buy it. So you have the plan, and we talked about the assessment last week, how you assess a deal, and then in a property, and then once you did that, for design development, once you talk to your architect and have a plan of like what's going to happen to this building, at like as Andrew said, like phase one, for example, converting to a duplex for now. Then you want to break down. Actually, this is a good example. For one of the projects, I broke down all the details of what needs to be done from the start, applying for a permit, all the way through the construction to the end, putting finishing and make it move-in ready, and then put a timeline on those. Also account for the budget and things that might go wrong and the projects that absolutely things to a percentage will go wrong in a construction project. It's never to the plan, and you account for that, and you make your project more efficient.
So that's a really granular explanation. I'm gonna go high level. Hire a contractor that's investor focused, and make sure that they've done this before and executed properly. Because at the end of the day, like most investors aren't going to actually execute the construction portion of it. Like, let's be very transparent. They need to hire skilled contractors, and you get what you pay for. All these contractors always go for the cheapest bid, and then you go look at their product. It's like you're going to try to get max rent for this because you went for the cheapest contractor. And at the end of the day, like that's not, for me, that's not a product I want to deliver. I want to have AAA tenants. Even if it's not in a AAA neighborhood, that's good, and it's going to change. I want to give a product to the highest standards, and we now are no longer doing construction of our group, so we are vetting high skilled contractors. You know, it's just not, we're not going for the cheapest bid. Most of these investors do, and I will tell you, you actually lose time. You lose a lot of patience. When you deal with the cheaper end contractors, you're doing more of the construction management, and you're not focusing on actually investing and growing your portfolio. You're dealing with the operational portion. So if you want to scale, you need a good team, and that means hiring a good an investment contractor, because that will bring you to your next level. I think it's actually, you lose more money when you hire a cheaper contractor. Just my opinion, because the variable costs go up.
I think it's great advice, because then the property itself is going to last longer, using better materials. I think, Mehdi, you and I talked about this last time, right? It's like, cool. All right, so now we're going to move on to architectural considerations, and I got a question, and of course you can talk about what we're seeing here, Mehdi, but here's a question. So when you're working with architects and designers, what's the most critical elements that investors should focus on to ensure both compliance and profitability? I think you touched on that in the last one a bit, Andrew. Any other thoughts on that question?
I just to explain what this is that you're seeing. It's a new detached garage that is being used as will be used as an ADU. It's for a client of mine, and you see the second story. It's you'll see that you can't see in this picture, but there are large windows on the side, and it looks like a garage. Part of it is a garage, but it's very deep, and it's a one-bedroom ADU that will be used. So one part of to answer your question, a part of like working with architects and designers ahead of time is to make sure what the property that you're buying, what Andrew said, is suitable for phase 2 and phase 3, meaning like adding an addition or putting an ADU. Not all the properties and all the lots can have an ADU. There are certain setbacks. We're going to talk about it, but make sure you check these with the designers and architect. Me as a general contractor, when I take the project, I'll be in touch with my architect and designer and have all of these answers for the investors.
Cool. That's pretty slick looking property, man. I love that ADU. That does not look like some of the ADUs. And here's the thing, I've seen one. There's a laneway ADU that they did, and it was incredible. It's slick. It looked like a McMansion, and it was just a small little two. I think it was a 2-unit. I was in Toronto and it was a laneway, but these look great. This is not what I would expect to see. You would expect to see a garage with a door in it. That doesn't look like a garage with a door in it. That looks pretty slick. Good job on that.
And something, it actually might be a question for Andrew. Andrew, I'm seeing like some of these ADUs listed for rent. The rent is more than the main dwelling unit or basement or second floor. I assume that people would love to live in a detached structure in the backyard. What better than that? Do you?
Well, that's correct, right? Like at the end of the day, it's a new structure. It's brand new. Brand news always sells more, right? So like everybody wants new. Everybody, and you could charge per square higher per square foot. Now, not much higher, but the problem that is being faced with ADUs is not recognized by lenders yet.
That's true.
On the refinance, which is going to take time. But when it does, in my opinion, I think it's going to fire on all cylinders because you're hitting targets that are needed. You're hitting housing, you're hitting construction. So like there's a lot of ripple effects that happen when you build an ADU. And I think that once the lenders kind of catch on and they're like, oh, you're going to get more per square foot, so let's evaluate this way, because it's not systematic yet with lenders. They're like, how do we evaluate it? Is it basically just an additional unit of the house, or is it a brand new structure? It's like they have a hard time justifying it. Like I went to go get appraisal for the current evaluation and what it's projected, and they're like, we don't know how to do it.
Well, it is new on the lender standpoint, right? Because it's all about, and in the end, it's all about risk, right? Because it's not separated from the actual property. Like when you're looking at the property tax, assessment, you're looking at it's one property, one structure, and it's all tied. Versus where, if you could divide it out like a condo, and they all have this separate title on each one of these, you could sell them all separately. Then that changes things.
Yeah.
And we're going to see that eventually, right? So that's pretty cool. Good tips.
One thing, Dwayne, before we move on from this, I want to mention for the ADUs, one big opportunity that I see and I love is that it's so easy to make it accessible and barrier free. Because if the lot allows, if we can pour a slab on grade, and build a structure on top of that, you can put an accessible parking spot back there, make the whole structure accessible, and it's not going to cost a whole lot more. There are a few things you got to add to the washroom, like to the square footage of spaces like washroom and kitchen, but like turning an existing structure into an accessible barrier-free structure like building, it's very hard and very, very expensive. But a new structure on a slab, like slab on grade, there is, and I think you can, again, Andrew can say that, but I think you can charge even more for an accessible unit.
Yeah, barrier-free stuff is because it's so limited, right? Supply is so low, usually demand goes high. And you can charge more for it because it does cost more to produce. Right. Like it's not cheap. Like our construction company used to do barrier-free tenders out in the smaller markets, and it used to be. I was shocked on how much more compared to do a bathroom, compared to doing a barrier-free bathroom. It's ridiculous. Right. It actually kind of blew my mind when I was seeing the budgets for it. It is a lot more. Now it is getting cheaper in price, but it's still a demand because we have short supply.
You're not kidding. I'll tell you right now, I used to work for TELUS, and I used to work with a dealer development as a development manager and open up all of these commercial locations, these retail locations. The average store build that we would do for these guys building Kudos, $50,000. The one that we had to do accessible in Kitchener was $100,000.
Oh, it's not like it's no joke.
Yeah, it's expensive. Like, because you had to put the bars, signs, buttons, emergency buttons, like, and those things are not cheap. The doors aren't cheap. The automatic doors that have to come out. Yeah, so I hear you. All right, we ready to move on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So this one's important, and this is a good idea that you can find that in the infill design guidelines. And Mehdi, I just want to talk about what we're seeing on the screen here, and you can talk about setbacks and stuff like that as well, right?
Yeah, sure. So the city and the new bylaws, they request if there is enough space by the side of the structure, they want access to the backyard and put the parking spot at the back, because most of the time it's not possible to put all the parkings required parkings in front. There are like some cases they allow up to two side by side parkings, but they don't want to ruin the whole front lawn and put like four parking spots in the front. So and for the infill, for new infill, they have more setbacks from the side, and they reduce setbacks from the back. So they want you to go deeper, but provide more space on the side of the building for aesthetic as well, but like to provide more parking in the back.
Mm-hmm. And so that leads us to the last questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. But we've talked a lot about how to do it. We talked about why to do it. But now I'd like to ask the question around risk and risk mitigation. So to both of you, what are the most common risks associated with duplex and triplex conversions, and how can investors best mitigate these risks? So maybe you can talk about that picture, Mehdi.
Let Andrew go first.
The big thing that I've experienced is not understanding what you're buying, right? So height requirements in basements, super big thing to notice, because if you buy wrong, you're going for a committee of adjustments. What I experienced was an inch off the driveway made me get a survey, and they weren't going to approve my duplex. And it was because I went off the wrong survey. I went off the city and not an actual private survey, because not everything the city provides is 100% accurate, right? So because I didn't do a due diligence, now this was one of my first ones, make sure you do your due diligence correctly, because if you don't know what you're looking for, hire a professional that does. That means a competent and an experienced contractor that's done investment projects before, right? It is extremely important, because it will remove that risk or a liability exposure because you're doing your due diligence correctly.
100%. Can't agree more. The picture that you see is a project there's a house I purchased years ago when and I didn't do a great assessment here. So, and I had a budget and a timeline. And once we removed one layer of flooring, we saw that like all the floor joists were like not even nailed. Some of them were rotten. And we got into a huge construction process and like drawings and city and stuff. So I went over time, over budget. And it just changed the whole economics of this deal. And same thing, like Andrew mentioned, like ceiling height in the basement and like setbacks. So the risks are not knowing what you're buying or what you're investing in. Definitely have a team helping you, like experienced team helping you understand what you're buying, what are your objectives, what you want to buy, what's your budget, what's your timeline, and have the team helping you would be like the great mitigation for those risks.
And you know what I like most about both of you guys? You both invest. You both have your own investment properties. You both have done this many times. So you're not just a general contractor or a realtor that helps people broker these deals. You actually have your own investments and have a lot of experience doing it. I think that says a lot. Well, folks, that's a close. That was a great session today. I can't wait for the next one. We've got some more topics coming down the pipeline, and we'll probably see you guys all next week. But I want to thank you both for coming on the show. And I'll make sure that all of your contact information is in the show notes. So if anybody is looking for, an incredible realtor, I always recommend Andrew. He does a great job. has an ear to incredible investments. And then for any type of conversion, duplex, triplex, I always turn to Mehdi.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I believe, hopefully, I'm looking forward for the next session. I believe you're talking about permits.
Yeah, that's fun.
Topic.
I promise it won't be just about permits.
No, it's not, but it will be fun. We'll make it fun.
All right,
gentlemen. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.